Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel and the final faction review for now for Pillage, and that's the last of the factions here in the East expansion. Of course, the Byzantines, which is a pretty cool faction, not gonna lie, probably gonna be our second one at some point. And like all the factions in this little mini expansion, they all actually come with quite a few rules which kind of really expand the game and what we can expect out of them. So first off, we get another new weapon here, the pikes. And basically, a warrior with a pike can support an allied figure in contact with an enemy in the same way as a spearman. It can also support an allied figure through another supporting figure in a straight line. To do so, the pikeman must be in contact with the figure supporting the engaged model in such a way that a straight line can be traced between the center of its base and the support's base and the engaged ally's base. So a pike inflicts another -1 penalty to the enemy's defense rolls. So between that and spears, basically you've got a pretty cool combination of abilities there. There are some downsides though. Pikes are unwieldy, so it's a -1 penalty to the bearer's defense rolls against both melee and shooting attacks. So that is the downside there, but if you can keep the enemy at bay, hopefully the guy that's actually engaged will win the fight pretty quickly, and you can kind of move on and rinse and repeat. And hopefully, you know, your shooting attacks are dealing with their capability to shoot you back. And what better way to do that, actually, than having composite bows, just like the Magyar. So basically, an upgraded bow and gets you 30 inches of range without even having to worry about elevation. So pretty cool stuff there. So just strictly better. You can also have cavalry-equipped bows, and they also use the composite bow. So not only do you get the range from the bow as standard, but the mobility of the cavalry on top of it, which really is going to extend that. Another cool feature of these guys is, as the Byzantines did historically make use of a lot of mercenaries, you can actually bring in Rus, Varangians, Saxons, Franks, and Scandinavians, etc. So 50% of your Byzantine army can be composed of warriors or special characters recruited from other armies. Chieftain does always have to be a Byzantine, though. So basically, if you're playing the Byzantines, you can import whatever other stuff you like from other factions and bring that to the table. It just can't be more than 50% of your core force. But that lets you bring in things like Varangian Guard from the Rus. You know, do you want Berserkers? Do you want Huskarls? You know, you name it, you can have it basically with this list. Other things too, we get the Cataphractoi, which are basically super heavily armed horsemen, and they are pretty dang expensive. So here's what you got to have if you want to run them, right? So, and we'll take a look at the list here in a second. You got to have a shield, you got to have armor, a spear, a hand weapon, and the horse. That's on top of the base cost for the guy. So what that lets you have, though, is you can choose which weapon to use at the start of the fight, whatever's best, whether it's the spear or the hand weapon. And in addition, the horse actually counts as fully armored rather than just unarmored for these guys, though. So they're basically a mobile tank, but you are going to pay through the roof for that. Last but not least, they also have their own talent that you can buy into, another 50-pointer. This one's situational, but it could be fun in just the right times, although I feel like 50 is a little overcosted for that, unless you're targeting like one of their more expensive guys that is at least maybe in that points range. So before the start of the battle, and basically these guys are bribing an enemy model to just join your side, but before the battle, after troops are deployed, the Byzantine player can choose an enemy warrior, not a special character, and without special equipment, and rolls a d6. On a 4-up, that warrior joins their army, and they can place the figure anywhere in their own deployment zone. Again, 50-50 chance for that. 50 points is a lot to spend on something like that, though. It's gimmicky, right? Fun, I think, more in like a campaign or other fluffy situation, but like if it was like a tournament or something like that, I think I'd opt for more models on the table, certainly. Now, definitely I think needs a little bit of clarification. Certainly, like special character makes sense, or no special character, but like without special equipment. So I wonder, I would assume they're probably counting like banners and war horns here, special equipment, because like if you're running like a Huskarl or something, let's say in Saxons, and you try to bribe them over, the Dane axe, it's kind of a special weapon, but it's not like unique, because a couple other factions get Dane axes too. So, but it'd be interesting to clarify that. But again, situational, I think. Finally, let's get a handle on this. So, Cataphractoi is their special unit. Surprisingly, they don't get access to a healer, considering they're like, you know, Eastern Roman Empire. But anyway, base cost here, as you might expect, thankfully the Cataphractoi is not overly expensive as a special model. 20 is plenty considering everything we have to buy. And thankfully for these guys, a lot of stuff is cheap because, well, again, it's an empire that has access to a lot of this stuff. So armor and shields are super cheap across the board, 5 there. Spears are also cheap all the way across the board. So again, keeping the horsies a little bit cheaper there if we're going that route. Hand weapon, 10 across the board too. So again, thankfully no upcharge there. The pike, for obvious reasons, can't be on the horse. Although it would have been interesting to have like a special upgrade for the lances that the Cataphracti would sometimes use. But anyway, pike though, 10 points there. So basically just considering it's twice as long as a spear, it costs twice as much. Pretty easy stuff there. But it gives you the option to have your hand-to-hand guys, spears to support, and then pikes to support that too. So you could really have like a nice little arrangement of models there. They get super cheap slings. Again, horses here, the Cataphractoi at least, aren't there to shoot. They're there to fight. No javelins, interestingly, and no crossbows, but bows, again, pretty standard cost there, kind of towards the high end. We've seen them, I think, from like 20 to 30 points here or more. So, but that being said, again, keep in mind it's really the upgraded bow. So considering it's still 25, that's actually not terrible, right? Because we're getting the composite bow. Horses here. Here's where it kind of sucks for the Cataphractoi, right? The horses, they're still paying actually a lot for that upgrade, 25. If that could have been 20, I think that'd make them absolutely fantastic. But as such, right, so for a single Cataphractoi, we have to have the base cost, armor and shield, so we're at 30. Got to have a spear and a hand weapon, so that's 45. And then the horse, is that what, 70? So 70 points a model, right? So if we lose one of them, that's going to sting quite a bit, right? So you got to be very careful about how these guys get deployed. Yeah, they got great armor, but again, like that lucky hit that goes through and you whiff the armor, there goes 70 points, right? So hopefully you can distract them with enough other stuff coming their way. You do get access to the banner. Pretty expensive for these guys, though, 45 gold. And the Warhorn clocking in at 20, so kind of a little bit higher than some of the other factions, but definitely paying a premium for that banner. But again, the banner does a lot of great things. Again, the only thing I'd say there is, surprisingly, no access to a healer, and as given like the Eastern Orthodox Church and all that. So that's a little bit of a surprise there, a little head scratcher. No wagon, but again, without the javelin, don't really need it, right? So. But other than that, good stuff. A powerhouse faction that, again, whatever weaknesses they have, you can make up for that really by access to using the mercenaries. And again, in like being a little cheeky here, if we did play a fun game and the backhander thing came into play, stealing one of the opponent's expensive models that they put a lot of points into would be just absolute icing on the cake. But so we get new weapons. They also get the composite bow, so really 2 new weapons because the Magyars had that too. The archers. Regular horse archers can do it too. They get access to mercs, so really they can basically play every other faction as well. And then a special mounted unit unique to them. So super heavy cavalry, basically. So let us know, guys, if you have already played the Byzantines, how that's gone in your game so far. What have you had success with? What have you not had success with? How much of the mercs have you used? And hit us up in the comments. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll have more pillage for you soon.